Today on Fight Capital, I'm diving into the combat sports business world with Mike Polvere, the mastermind behind Cage Titans. We talk about authenticity and the power of helping the athletes promote themselves, and get ready for an insider's take on the evolving world of combat sports, empowering fighters, and the relentless drive to continue to build one of the top organizations in the world. And if you're enjoying everything we're putting out here today, please subscribe and give us a like. It means the world to me. Let's get it. Welcome back to Fight Capital, where we step into the ring of combat sports business. I'm your host, Ryan Rappaport. Today, I'm joined by Mike Polvere. He is the visionary behind Cage Titans, one of the Northeast's premier fighting promotions, known for its commitment to the integrity of combat sports and fighter welfare. A retired MMA fighter himself, Mike has leveraged his personal experiences and passion for the sport to create a platform that nurtures talent and delivers high-quality events. Under his leadership, Cage Titans has become synonymous with community, opportunity, and the electrifying excitement of MMA, setting a new standard for regional promotions. Thanks for being here today, Mike. How are you and where you're joining from?
Thank you. I appreciate it. That introduction, man. I'm not even lying. You can't, if this camera, you can catch it. I get a little teary eye hearing that. I appreciate the very, very kind words. But I'm joining you from our Cage Titans podcast studio in Quincy, Massachusetts, in the basement of Coop's Bar and Grill.
Which is your spot, I've heard.
Yeah. So what's funny is MMA journey started. I got some old posters of mine. It started when I was just the doorman at this bar. And a friend of mine called me up in like 2007, and he was working at this bar, and they were looking for a door guy. He calls me up on a Saturday night. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm grocery shopping." He goes, "What are you doing grocery shopping on a Saturday?" I said, "I'm married. I have a kids." Like, what? That's what I'm doing. He said, "Well, we need a door guy for this event we're hosting at the bar I'm working at. Would you be interested?" And he's like, "You're the toughest guy I know." So I figured I'd hit you up. I said, "Sure." So in my fighting career, I was the Coop's doorman. And then fast forward 15 years later, we Cage Titans, and now the owner of the restaurant. It's been a cool journey in my career.
That's super fascinating. Yeah, and Nick, obviously, Heiler, who we had on, connected us, which was so cool. He spoke really highly of what you guys have been building there, and I've been following it through some of the people that you had through there come through, like Michael DeFore, who I got to meet at the PFL championships, and just been really impressed with everything you guys are doing between the content. Love that you guys are doing a podcast. Obviously, the quality of the fights as well that you're putting on. That's all awesome. I'm just curious. So you have obviously this personal experience as an athlete in the space. Can you just talk a little bit about how that's influenced your approach around the fight promotion and the way you're like treating these athletes that are coming through Cage Titans?
So essentially, when I look back at those days when I was fighting MMA as a promoter, MMA promoters weren't like the most stand-up people. You think about in the 80s, 90s, Don Kings of the world ripping fighters off. I mean, that's the reality of a lot of promotions back in the early days. And I was subject to some of those underhanded stuff when I fought. Guys not getting paid, not getting paid what you were told you were supposed to get paid, getting misinformation on opponents, bait and switches in opponents on fight week, all the horror stories you hear. But I've kind of saw it play out when I was fighting. And essentially, I came to a point in time where I thought I would never fight. And it was going to be just train because I liked the training aspect of it. And I wasn't a treadmill guy and a lift weights kind of guy. I was I was an athlete. I played hockey. So I just always thought that's what was going to be kind of what was going on. And one fight turned into two, turned into three. And then I'm sitting there at 28 years old, knowing that I didn't see a path to like keep making a big impact in the sport as a competitor, as a fighter. At 3-0 as an amateur, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go pro, but I'm not going to make a run to the UFC at my age and things of that nature. I just kind of felt that I had so much passion for the sport and so much experience by doing it myself. I thought that I could take my marketing, because my background is marketing and sales. I was a regional sales manager, director of marketing for a company. We had 50 locations. Um, so like that's my passion, is also marketing and sales. And I just figured I can blend the two, and give fighters an honest platform and a place to compete. When you get a matchup and I tell you, you ask me questions and get information, I'm not going to tell you he's 5'8" and he shows up at 6'2". I'm not going to tell you he has no experience and you find out he's a D1 college wrestler who was undefeated his senior year, All American. Um, you didn't have to worry about the minute the fight was over, running to a check cash in place, not even wait until Monday to put in your bank because you don't know if it's going to bounce. I just want to give these guys a great place, and I felt that with my background and my passion and love for the sport, I could really set it up. And at the time, I was actually in the wedding business. The marketing company and the sales company that I worked for was Mr. Tux. It was a New England-based company. We sold the Men's Warehouse. And my journey in MMA is around that, because when we got bought out by Men's Warehouse, if I stayed through the entire transition, I got a severance package. And with that severance package, I bought my first heavy bag, speed bag, and elliptical. And I started training in my basement before I found a gym. Fast forward a few years, once that company was over and we stayed through the transition, I landed at Lombardo's in Randolph, Massachusetts. And there I was the operations manager. So we had this beautiful function facility that could hold, 1,200 plus people. They did boxing in the 80s. And now the next generation of family, that was a family run business, third generation, the son was a wrestler and he loved MMA and he would come and watch me fight. And we kind of convinced the parents that, hey, listen, I know you did boxing in the 80s and you had a bad experience. They had a boxing promoter that didn't do a great job. Not only that, they had some security issues where they brought somebody in from out of state to lose and he ended up winning. There was like fights in the crowd. So they were like, we convinced them to do a fight there. And that was the start of Cage Sides. It was going to do one event, never again, because I had the facility. Then one turned to two, turned to three, turned to 14 years later, 60, whatever events it is. It's been fun. But the root of your question is I always remember what it was that I would want when I was a fighter, whether it be a poster, whether it be information. When I fought, there really wasn't a ton of social media, but for some older fans, I give this all the time. I got a yellow piece of construction paper with a Word document printed on it. That was my poster to promote my fight. And kids nowadays are like, what's construction paper? I'm like, it's paper, but it's a little thicker and it comes in all kinds of crazy colors. But if you're my age and I tell you it was like the gold, construction paper, that right away. Like you remember doing that as a kid. It was that with a Word document printed on it. So I went out and I made my own posters. I went out and I got my own sponsors. My first fight, I went out and just put like some of my friends' companies on my shirt because I knew my next fight, I'd be able to see like, hey, do you want to be on the back of this? This is what it looks like. It's a lot easier to sell once you have something in hand. So I just kind of remembered what I wanted, and I always attribute that in everything I do. I've also, we talk business, but like as a business, I always had a full-time job, and that always paid my bills and helped me with my family. So I was never in a situation where I might have been forced to do something for a financial gain that might not have been best for the brand or the business or a fighter. And I don't fault people like that. In the early days, we had the 12, 14, 18-foot screens with projectors, and now it costs a couple grand. And some people would rather put that couple grand in their pocket, but I had a job. I had that. So this was my passion project. So I was able to reinvest every time and not skimp, not cut corners, not lowball people. And now here it is today. Like, and it's 14, 15 years later, it's really paid off. But at its core, is just remembering what I would have wanted when I was a fighter, how I want to be treated, not be a ticket whore. Sorry if you're not G-rated, G-rated podcast, but like not
R-rated.
be a ticket whore where it's like buy tickets, buy tickets, buy tickets, please buy tickets. I need money. I need to have ticket sales. It's like, you know what? You can subconsciously to your fan base sell tickets by posting the posters that we give you, the graphic cards, the quote banners, the fact that you're on a podcast. There's so many things that you can do to kind of project that you're fighting with the underlying, like, hey, buy your tickets from me so I can make some money as the fighter. But I want to give these guys tools to help their little business. And that's what I did and I'm going to keep going on. But when I was a fighter, I looked at my fight as a singular business. How can I generate the most out of that one fight, that one night only? Sponsorship, ticket sales, the social media aspects, all those pieces go into that one night. So yeah, you get that paycheck for fight night, but it's all that stuff that leads into it, and that one business opportunity. So yeah, man, that's my long-winded answer on how I attribute kind of, what I was when I was fighting to what we do every day at Cage Titans. So there you go.
Well, very specific mentions there of, the check cashing, the misinformation, spoken from some probably things that either you've experienced or, anyone who kind of understands the scene out there in the regional promotion, just promotions in general, knows that those are things that happen. But with Cage Titans growth and the reputation that you guys have been building over that time, are there any particular strategies that you're looking at? I know you mentioned a couple of them there, but what do you believe is like most contributed to the success of the promotion?
I mean, it's maybe the perfect storm. Um, it really, I can't pinpoint on any one thing besides that, we always try to do what's best by the fighters. We always try to do what's best by the fans. It's not just BS. It's really how we do it. Whether it's their experiences when they get in the locker room, they have a goodie bag with snacks while they're sitting back there in t-shirts and free shorts and things of that nature. So, essentially, I don't know if I can pinpoint any one thing. It was a perfect storm. I think in the very early days of Cage Titans in 2010, when I started, it was relatability. I'd go to a gym and somebody might recognize me that I fought, or hey, I'm one of you guys. Screw these other promoters who are just suits trying to piggyback off your hard work and success and make a buck off you. Like, I kind of, I play that up. There's a lot of people who have never done this that are promoters, and I really kind of felt like that. Maybe that's just because of the time when I fought. It was like these are just sleazy people that are just trying to make money off fighters, and I was able to relate to them and just say I'm not that guy. Now, 15 years later, fighters are like, "What do you mean you fought?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I fought." So I don't think I rely on that as much now, but I rely on a great platform. We've built this amazing platform and this amazing brand, and I really let the fighters flourish on it. It's as simple as giving them so much social media attention in the build up to the fights. It's giving them, on fight night, like there's promotions that still to this day don't take photos at weigh-ins and post them, or never mind live stream them. There's still promotions that don't release videos of people's fights. Like there's just so many easy things you can go out and do, and it's like so. Like I think at this stage of the game, like if you're fighting for Cage Titans, it's like cool. I'm going to get new headshots because we do headshots on everybody. We're going to have weigh-in photos to help promote after your weigh-ins with your stare downs. Never mind the video. We're doing banners and graphics with you all the time. We have multiple photographers that we hire to shoot. So you're getting two angles of photos. We're streaming it live. We're really incentivized the fighters as well, like with monetarily, like they're getting paid just as much as they are in other promotions, but we're giving them other revenue streams where they're getting percentage of their tickets, which is higher than any other promotion. And we're escalating them based on how well they sell. We give them a kickback of their pay-per-view, which is something that's not heard of on the local level, where it's just like you fight and they stream it and you don't see anything. It's like, all right, cool. If you're selling 10 pay-per-views with your promo code, you get $150 that you would never have access to by just telling 10 of your friends to buy it. And so that's where I think we are at now. I think the longevity and the expectation is there. Like we're consistent. Like that March 30th is our next fight. You know, May 25th is our next one. You know, July 21st is the next one. Like we're doing 6 shows a year. We don't cancel. We don't do anything like that. Like if you put your name in, like you're fighting. And I think just the consistency and is really what has now helped us out. But so that I don't know if it's that one thing. Also the energy that we bring to an event. That's one of the things I guess that a lot of fighters will tell me is that they'll come back to Cage Titans after fighting another pro. They're like, or they'll go to another show and they're like, the energy's just not the same as it is as Cage Titans. But guess what? It's because we're pulling back the curtain. We're not saying, here's fighter A fighting fighter B. He's 2-0. He's 4-0. Come watch them fight. We're telling stories and we're letting who that person is. We had Katie Perez, who is an out-of-stater fighting for the first time on our upcoming card. She's on our podcast, and we're talking about how she's a violinist and she plays multiple string instruments. How, before her fights, she's always picking different hair colors, and that was a big thing that she does. And we were talking about it's your first time, but we're going to do a fan vote on like pick the color of hair because that was her thing. We've done that before with Bruno Jacare. And so just like getting people to realize why they want to see these people fight, telling stories about them like, cool, fighter A. Well, fighter A is a school teacher. And somebody's like, I didn't give a shit about that fight before, but wow, man, he's a teacher. I'm a teacher. I come from a school, a family of teachers. I kind of want to see this guy fight now. Chris Makate was on the podcast. And then we did a whole segment like Makate, his last name actually comes from like a death rope. And he told the story and people were like, dude, this guy's chill. Like, this is cool. Like they were like, yeah, he's fighting a hometown guy, but I'm actually kind of pulling for him. Like, and I think we tell the story and we allow them to flourish on the stage. Joe the Party Penfiel is a beautiful example. He came to us as the out-of-stater fighting an undefeated Lozon prospect that everybody was there to see. They're flipping him off. They're, booing him, and he wins. And some people are like, huh. But he did he did a cool walkout. He was pretty cool on the microphone. And then the next time he came up, like he did some of the same things. And he said to me, Mike, he's like, no one ever let me be who I was. I was a ton of personality, but they were always like, oh, don't do that. Stop that. Don't do this. Don't do that. Tell him what he shouldn't do. And he's like, you're the first promotion that was like, dude, if you want to dance on the walkout, if that's what you feel, cool. I'm not telling you to hurry up. If you want to wait for the beat to drop in the middle of the song until you walk out, go ahead, bro. Like that. This is your moment. This is your time. And now he's doing well. He's fighting for Game Bread, making a ton of money at Game Bread.
Great fight.
He was probably one of our most talked about fighters 2 years ago because he exploded on the scene. People are asking. He was one of the most asked fighters. When's the party coming back? When's the party coming back? And we were bringing him back every event. So like the stage is yours. What are you going to do with it? And I promise you, we're going to capture it and we're going to blow it up. There you go.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Joe because they were hyping him up. People were picking him as one of the best fights of the night at Game Bread, which I thought was cool. But you touched on something really interesting because just the way the combat sports is evolving and the way that the platforms are changing, I think you guys have done a really good job of moving with those. How is that evolution in combat sports really, particularly on the regional scene, like Cage Titans are being affected by the rise of these digital platforms and social media? I mean, obviously you talked about the podcast, everything you guys are doing social. I think you guys are all doing amazing, but just curious to get your thoughts just kind of like on the landscape today too.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough question. I appreciate it. I mean, I haven't really thought too much about it because I'll be real. I think that when people think too much outside of what they're doing, they lose sight. And then they have these, like this vision of grandeur and they start like forgetting who they are. Like I live in my Cage Titans bubble, and if it works for us, we roll it till the wheels fall off. And like, I do see the digital platform, but like when I first started doing this, we used to record and sell DVDs. So a lot has changed in the evolution. So there is some evolution there, but I remember going back in the day and I just love talking history because like, I remember we used to film the fights and we couldn't release them because back in 2010, there really wasn't a platform for it. And I would go back after the fights to a studio, watch the DVD and do commentary over it. Like I didn't know what the hell happened. Uh, and then it was like, I'd be in the videographer's office watching a computer monitor, talking to a microphone by myself for 4 hours, 5 hours, and acting like I didn't know. Oh my God. It's like, yeah, this happened last week. I know he got knocked out, but I got to pretend I don't know. So we'd sell DVDs. We've always been, I think, a little bit ahead because there was a point in time in the mid, 2014, 15 or whatever, that everybody there was a big promotion around that was like, oh, I'm on TV. And it's like, all right, cool. That's great. And that was like the pinnacle that you're getting on TV. And we were just streaming. We were streaming our events out live. And we were just kind of always doing it. And then it was like all these promotions, they were like, hey, we're not on TV anymore. We're streaming. And it's like, yeah, welcome to 7 years ago. That's what we were doing. And it's like when you knocked us because we weren't on TV, well, full circle. Now you're bragging that you were where we were, but I don't know, whatever. Anyways, the evolution has definitely helped because here's the other reality of the situation. A lot of people don't sit down and watch TV on a certain night or a certain day. Things are digital now. Like, yes, hypothetically on Fight Pass, you might have the opportunity to get in front of 1 million households. You don't know how many people are actually watching it. But I tell you right now, every event we have viral clips that hit 1 million views like nothing. Last show it was just two kids. We had a grappling match. Two kids walking out to the match got like 1.4 million views. So like we have other avenues to blow you up. And in the social media digital age, like that's kind of where it's at. Like I don't know if the days of sitting down in front of a TV for 4 hours, like kids nowadays want to see quick highlights. And we have that down pat like no other. Nick and our social media team, I tell them all the time, I say, capture it. Because I had this mentality back, for the last 5, 6, 7 years. It was like, if somebody can't be at our show before we even kind of streamed or whatever, that was huge. It was like, if they go to our social media, I want them to feel like they were there. Give them everything. Let's see them walk in when they get here. Let's see the back room. Let's see this. Let's see that. And then our social media kind of transitioned a little bit when our streaming became so popular. I said, okay, anybody who wants to watch the fights, they're going to watch the event and watch the stream. Let's make social media everything that's not in the stream, in the broadcast. Because if they want to see that stuff, they're going to see that on the broadcast or the pay-per-view. Let's give them everything else on social media. So we would do Snapchat takeovers, Instagram takeovers, where fighters who weren't on the card that were fighting that night, it'd be like, hey, I'm Peter Barrett. I took the Instagram account over for the night. Follow me on a night at Cage Titans. And we were doing things like that. We were doing that with Snapchat. So we've always tried to think of the next progression, and it's worked out pretty well, I guess. It's worked out pretty well.
Well, I'm very forward thinking. I'm just kind of curious, where do you guys see yourself sitting in the kind of broader landscape of MMA? Because a lot of regional promotions are like, oh, we want to be the next UFC, or we want to be the next one championship. And I don't hear that from you, but other than we're just the feeder system for the UFC. Is there any way that you kind of see yourself fitting into the mold there, or maybe even outside of it?
I mean, quite honestly, if I ever said I'm the next UFC, I would never do an event again. I would just be like, that's everything that is the opposite of who we are and what I stand for. I think what I was getting at, and you kind of pulled it together nicely. Everybody in every promotion over 14, 15 years that I've been doing this, and even longer when I was fighting, that said that they're the next WEC, they're the next Strikeforce, they're the next Pride, they're the next UFC, they're the next Bellator. Guess what? They're nowhere. They're not around anymore. Because people get so caught up in trying to get to that. It's like, what's wrong with being the best Cage Titans? What's wrong with being the best that we can be? And staying true to ourselves and staying true to our fighters and try to stay true to the fans. And Probably in a bad way. I had this mentality and I never thought of like sitting back and thinking about it. But back in the day, I'd be like, I don't give a F who the hell in Kansas knows who Cage Titans is. We're a regional promotion in New England. I care about our fans and our fighters. So when people are bringing in ex UFC guys and they're trying to base their business model on that, I'm like, I could give two shits because no one in New England knows that guy. They're like, yeah, maybe somebody from Kansas might. I'm sorry, Kansas, if you're watching. And you're like, why does he keep picking on us? But I don't care if somebody in Kansas knows who's fighting on this card because, like, I have uh obligation to my New England fans, my New England fighters, because that's where we were. Um, so like, I don't know. I mean, now it's great because I think I was true to that because there was always the fans and the fighters here in New England. But then that has kind of started to rub off on other areas, and we're growing our fan base. But I think at our core, we're staying true to that. Hey, we're here for the fighters and the fans, and we did such a good job in our area. It didn't hurt when we brought in fighters from other areas. Like, I can't tell you how many fighters come in from out of state and they're like, yeah, we every other promotion we've ever fought for, we're just the guy here to collect a check and lay down for the hometown guy. And I'm like, no, man, like we're here to, without you, there's no them. Without you, there's no Cage Titans. Without, like, you're just as part of the show as everybody else. We make promo videos for out of state fighters, which is unheard of. You know, when we do our press conference, I will not do a press conference if both guys cannot be there. And I schedule our fighters that are out of state to travel to come in so they can be there. We're not rolling out a press conference where we just have the three hometown guys standing there next to me saying, "Oh, let's come on, let's sell some tickets." It's like I want both guys there. We treat them all equally. You know, and I think that's just showing. It's so genuine and it's so ingrained in us that it comes off. But like that whole like next UFC, next WEC, next big XYZ promotion, that's just not really what I'm looking to do. Like I'm raising, people say raise the bar. I kind of got on this kick. We raise our bar. Like I'm not raising the bar for anybody else. I'm raising our bar. Every time we go back to the drawing board after a show, I learned a long time, because you like to talk to business, this might hit you. When I worked at Mr. Tux, I was 21 years old, and I'll bore you with this story, but it's a good model that's helped me my entire business career. I sat out Cheryl McCannis. She'll probably never see this, but she was the owner of Mr. Tux. We had 50-something stores. I'm a new kid that's 20 years old, 21 years old, about to have my first kid. I'm working in the corporate office, and I'm like, don't really know what's much is going on. She comes out. She says, hey, the guy who used to sit at this desk wrote a letter to all of our stores last year. Can you find it? And we're going to send it out. Yeah, no problem. Seems pretty easy. I go on there, looked up the dates, found the file, send it out to all 50-something stores. And probably about 20 minutes later, I'm sitting at my desk and I hear her in there with the VP of operations. And she's like, who the fuck sent this letter out? And I'm sitting there shrinking in my chair. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what? She's like, what idiot would send this out when this, that, and the other thing? And I just hear her kind of like going, and I'm like, man, I'm just feeling so small. I think I've been there for like a month, and I'm just feeling so small. I'm like, what did I do? Like, she told me to send out, like, find the letter because it was on the desk. I sent it out. So a couple minutes go by, and she calls me in the office, and she goes, hey, listen, do you send this letter out? I said, yeah, you told me. And she goes, I'm going to give you the best advice I can ever give you. And hopefully this will hit somebody else. And I'm going to do my best to kind of polish it. But she goes, I don't care. I said, that was the letter that was sent out last year. She goes, I don't care what it is you do in your life or business. If it worked a year ago, it worked 6 months ago, it worked 3 years ago, 3 months ago, or 3 minutes ago. Every time you do that again, look for something to improve upon. And her point is like, yeah, that letter went out last year and it was perfect. And we're kind of talking about the same thing. That's why it makes sense to just send out the same letter, because that was good last year. Why wouldn't I send the same letter to all 50 stores this year? But her point was that no matter how successful you thought it was, find something to improve upon. And that's always stuck for me 20-something years later. It sticks with me for Cage Titans. Every time somebody's like, that was an amazing event, I'm like, there's something I can fix. And that's always stuck with me in business and in the Cage Titans.
Well, and I think that really speaks to the way that you're supporting the fighters and helping them build their brands and their own financial success out of the ring as well.
Yeah. Um, and I think that if you kind of chopped for a second, but if the question is how am I helping them, um, with their financial success, it's giving them a great platform. I just keep coming back to that. Like when this isn't the bingo hall local promotion that you think, or you watch one of those wrestling shows and you think you're in a high school gymnasium. You are a superstar at Cage Titans, and you are a superstar whether it's your first amateur fight, or you're the guy at the headliner that could be going to the UFC, or you're a guy who fought in the UFC who's coming back to try to get back there. You are a superstar. Our platform is set up that we make you a star for that night. So what does that do for you guys as fighters? Well, it makes it a lot easier to get sponsorships when you're trying to get that. It's a fun evening out. It's a lot easier for you to sell tickets when you're going to your friends like, oh shit, man, I saw some videos of Cage Titans. That's legit. I want to be there. It makes it easy. No one's coming to a Cage Titans event and going, yeah, man, I never want to go back to that event again. I can tell you, I love MMA. I've gone to promotions where I've gotten tickets for, and I go in there and I'm like, yeah, this ain't for me. The vibe's off. I'm standing room only. I'm in the back of it's one level and I'm looking over people's heads. I'm like, yeah, I got these tickets for free and I'm not even staying. I'd give them back. There's no one thinking that at Cage Titans. Like at Cage Titans, you're having a night and you're having a blast. And I can't tell you how many people have come to the events and said, I thought I was going to hate it, but I'm a huge fan. And they fall in love with it. So I think that's what we're helping these fighters out. We're helping them, give them a platform to build financial revenue streams. They're getting a fight purse, they're getting ticket sale commission, they're getting pay-per-view numbers. They're getting huge social media numbers from us where I have no problem pulling it back and saying, listen, you're going after a big sponsor? Cool. Here's our numbers. Sweeten the pot for yourself and show them the numbers that when you're on our podcast, if you're wearing their shirt, is it worth $50 to them or a couple free shirts or whatever it is? Like I'm trying to give them guys the tools. And then also educating the fighters on bringing people along on the journey. I had this great talk with a young fighter 2 days ago. I was dropping off tickets and he was like, hey, Mike, like, can I just get like a link and just tell people to go to the website? I said, you can do that. But here, let me educate you on why the way we do it's a little better. Would you agree that the vibe in the building is exciting on fight night? Yes. Why do you think that is when you go to other shows, they don't have that vibe? I'm not sure. I said, well, you're taking time out of your day to meet up with somebody, to hand them a ticket and them hand you money. You're creating that bond with that fan or your friend, and they feel they're a part of your journey. So there's a little, you're giving them 10 minutes of your time to take out of your day to meet them with that ticket, and they feel important that you met them. Now they feel they're a part of your journey. They know how they're a part of your journey. So then they're even more invested on fight night because they feel a part of it. And there you go. That's where the formula is to get that building rocking for every single fight. And he was like, wow, I never thought about it. I said, how many times? I'll tell you right now. You want a link? I'll give you the link. I've done this. Your friend's going to say, hey, you coming to my fight? And you're going to say to him, he's going to say to you, I might come to your fight, or you're going to ask him if he's coming to your fight. And he's going to say, oh, yeah, I got tickets offline. And that's the blow off. And he might go get tickets online. He might not. But it's a lot different if you're like, hey, you coming to my fight? Oh, yeah. All right, cool. Hey, listen, on Saturday, I'm going to be delivering tickets. I'll come by your house. Or can you meet me here? And we're going to I'll get you the tickets and, say what's up and whatever. Now it's a personal connection, and that is valid. And that's tightening that bond. And, now that guy feels a part of your journey. I keep saying that. They're a part of your journey. They're part of your squad. And going those levels of being like, hey, man, I've had fighters that have hit me up. I want to do shirts. I'm like, here's my t-shirt guy. I'll connect you. I'll help you design your shirt. Peter Barrett, everybody loves Peter Barrett shirts. Peter Barrett comes to me with a napkin and it's like, hey, I drew out this idea. This is what I'm thinking. I said, all right, cool. Send me a couple screenshots of things. And then I make his shirts and I help him do it. I've done that for Joe Giannetti, Sean Lally. Like, I'll help guys come up with shirts, which can help them out and gain revenue. So it's just helping them and given the knowledge that that I have from doing this for so long. And I try to present it in a way um, that's like, hey, listen, these are some tried and tested things that I've done. This isn't just an idea that I'm throwing out there.
One of the things I noticed that you guys do a really good job with the women's fights. You mentioned the athlete, women's athlete before previously. I didn't catch her name, but who you had on the podcast, doing the hair color and all that type of stuff. And with this kind of increasing inclusion and growth of the women's side of combat sports and the title matches, how is Cage Titans addressing that diversity and kind of helping grow that demand for the women's combat sports?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's an interesting question. I haven't really put too much thought in it. I'll be quite honest. Oddly enough, like I always get asked about women's fights, and people are always like, "Oh, you got any woman fight on this card?" And it's like, I get fights. Like, I mean, I didn't really know if it matters. Like, you're coming to fights, but it is a unique curiosity when there's women fighters, fighting, but it's just something that's been second nature. I never really think about it as women fighter or men fighting. We've had fighters, like Danielle Heinley, who's been fighting for us since 2013. There's not an overabundance of fighters. I will tell you this, and I joke with a lot of the fighters that fight for us, women specifically. I'm like, if I never matched another woman's fight or a heavyweight male fight again in my life, I'd be a happy man, because they're just not a robust division. So it's like, I'd put you on like Hillary Rose is on this card. I'm like, Hillary, I'd put you on every card, but I just don't always have a 115-pound woman that's readily available. If you want to fight at 145 or 155, I'll give you 12 different names to choose from. But women and heavyweight are like the names. It's like they're few and far between. But I do love seeing the emergence of it. I think people are fascinated by it. It's great to see the women's sports. They're just as aggressive. They're just as all the things that people might think, like, they're putting just as much time. I've trained besides women. It's like they're putting just as much time and effort and stress and all that stuff as male counterparts. And it's great to see they have these platforms for growth. And it's really been nice. I will say this fight card, actually, I believe we have two women's fights, which is crazy and unheard of on this upcoming fight card. But it's becoming more prevalent, and it's great to see. Invicta came to Boston a couple months back, which is an all-female fighting organization, and they did a great job here. So just more opportunity and more opportunity for anything, especially in MMA. Like, the more eyeballs. I remember back in the day, people used to always bitch about Ronda Rousey, and they're like, I'm really at my core, like, want to see the sport succeed. So people are like, oh, I hate Ronda Rousey, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm like, she has more people than ever before that's watching the sport or asking about her. More people ask me. I have a sports bar. More people would ask me if I could beat up Ronda Rousey than any question I've ever had about my career. Whenever people would, or Cage Titans, like, do you think you beat her up? I'm like, I don't know. Like, this is just stupid, But anyways, it brings.
No offense, but probably not.
Yeah.
That's
I think I would. But anyway,
I'm not taking on Amanda Nunes. I don't want any part of Amanda Nunes. I'll tell you that.
For another fun conversation, I did grapple on Mackenzie Dern's once at the PI, and all the the guys that we were training with, they're like, man, you just went for it. I'm like, I'm not going to treat her any different. And I'm like, you guys are like, don't want to tap her out. I was like, they're like, man, you really slashed that guillotine on. I'm like, yeah, I'm not taking it easy on her. I'm like, I don't care who she is. But anyways, another story for another day. A couple people who watch this, they might have a chuckle because they were there. But either way, I'm a big proponent of the business of MMA and what's good for the business. Like, Ronda Rousey brought eyeballs that never saw. Whether you hate or love Conor McGregor, he brings eyeballs that people who never talk about it. Brock Lesnar, stuff like that. Whether you love those guys or hate them, they bring eyes and they bring new fans that you hope that they might, or maybe they're not fans. Maybe they're pink hats, like they like to call people in Boston, like pink hats or whatever. But you have an opportunity that if 100 new people come because they only want to see Ronda Rousey, I'm using obviously low numbers, that maybe 5 of them stay and actually become fans. That's kind of what Cage Titans is built on. You sell 100 tickets for your fight. My goal is that 5 of those people, next card when you're not fighting, they were like, I had so much fun at Cage Times. I'm a fan of Cage Times now, and now they come. Rob Pico, one of our super fans, his daughter's husband was a fighter. He fought twice for us as an amateur, 6, 7 years ago. And he came just to watch them. Now, this guy's a super fan. He buys 30 front row tickets every event, no matter who's fighting, and he's a fan. So, like, that's where I'm going with this, like, whole thing. Like, think of Super Bowl. Why is Super Bowl the massive event that it is? People are like, well, housewives who don't care about football are sitting around the TV watching Super Bowl. And sorry they use that, and it may not politically correct, but that's what they say. It's just like people who aren't fans, they're watching Super Bowl Sunday. And that's why it's such a massive mega event. So that's what these people kind of bring to the table. And it's like, you hope you can capture a few of those people. People ask me all the time, well, who do you want to win? I'm like, I get that question asked all the time. Who do you see winning this fight? And I'm like, I just like to watch fights and just enjoy the action. If you press me, the only way I'm going to tell you who I want to see win this fight is all business based. It's like, well, this guy's held the belt for so long, but he's not a huge draw. If this guy gets the belt and wins this fight, he's bringing some more eyeballs with him. He's probably not as skilled. He probably should lose, but I think this guy, I want to win because I want to see him keep projecting and pushing that bar. Things of that nature. So that's how I always kind of look at the sport. It's like, all right, well, how am I going to get how are more eyeballs coming? What's best for the brand? What's best for the sport? And building it, because we're not at the NFL, NHL, MLB level. MMA is still in its infancy, so to speak, and we still need to see that progression. We still need to see those. When you go to a NHL game and there's Dunkin' Donuts and Budweiser and every big blue chip sponsor on boards and everywhere else, and you go to an MMA event and it's like Joey's Towing as a sponsor. Like, we still need to get to that level where people realize how big this sport can be, how many eyeballs we can bring in, and then more money will follow, more sponsorships will follow, more money for the fighters will follow. There's just such another progression of the business that we have yet to hit. We're getting there though.
No, I'm the same way. I don't pick them, and I'll tell you what I think, but what I think is probably not what's going to happen. And it's any given night. And I'm looking at it from a completely different perspective. I'm not on there on FanDuel betting on it. Let's put it that way. So, if you could just, Mike, this has been awesome. Really appreciate this. I'm just curious, like, if you look into your crystal ball, is there like one trend that you see for the future of MMA that might impact Cage Titans?
Man, that's a great question. I know you kind of prepped me, and I purposely didn't think much of your questions because I want to be in the moment. I'm a big believer. It's like, all right, listen, feel whatever I'm feeling in that moment. Let me let that out. Maybe a trend of as hard as this is, I see trends of like going to like no crowd events, and the crowd is such a big vital part. Like the Apex. I know PFL films some of their events in empty stadiums. You're going over to Abu Dhabi, and it's like somebody gave you millions of dollars to come here, and they don't care how many people in the crowd.
I was gonna say not by choice, probably.
Yeah, like it's like I don't really like that trend, but it seems like it's like you're seeing more Apex shows, more intimate shows. I guess it's double edged. Like in one perspective, it's like you're bringing enough sponsor money and television deal money that it doesn't matter who's in the crowd, and you don't need that ticket revenue. That's amazing. But at the same time, it's like, it's not amazing. Like, this sport is so much more fun when you have the crowd interacting, you have the fans. As a fighter, I'll tell you right now, my fight, when I had my first fight, X amount of years ago, I wanted to quit after the first round. And I envisioned me going out there and just taking this guy out one round. And he was tough. And I sat down after the first round exhausted. And I'm like, man, I don't think I can get up off this stool. And I looked around and I heard the crowd and I'm like, yep, get up there. Get up, get up, you son of a bitch, because Mickey loves you, Rocky reference. And I'm like, I got to get up. And then I went back to the stool in the second round. I'm like, I don't think I can get off this damn stool. But I got it, because I'm looking around. So I think I think it's also a different level for the fighters. So it's a trend that I see kind of popping up. And I've seen some fighters outspoken about it. They're like, dude, don't put me in an Apex event. I want to be in an arena. So I guess that's a crystal ball trend that I see happening. But my crystal ball hopefully says that we stop that shit. And we just keep putting on big mega shows for these fans to be able to enjoy, because it's truly a treat to see, you know, a fight night event. Like, I can go watch you and your buddies kick the soccer ball in the backyard. We can go down to the park and go play hoops. Like, you see that stuff all the time. You don't really see the level of MMA and fighting, with your own eyes and witness it. Besides a couple of barroom push heel scuffles or schoolyard scuffles, it's a beautiful sport. It really is, and so I hope that trend is not something that continues or gets more traction.
Well, it's funny you say that, because anyone who's ever watched a Cage Titans replay or been there knows that it's probably not anything that's happened for you guys anytime soon. I mean, I watch a lot of regional promotions, some smaller promotions, and I can tell you guys blow it out every single time. What you're doing there at Plymouth Hall is amazing, and love every moment of it. And just really appreciate you doing this. You dropped some gems today, and I love this because I know people do actually get a lot of value from this. So thanks, Mike, for being here. Really appreciate you, man, and looking forward to seeing your guys' next promotion.
Man, I really appreciate your time, and thank you. I mean, I really appreciate this, as it's just not your cookie cutter, type of podcast. Like, giving the business side, and that's kind of, I coming on and going, hey, fighter A is taking on fighter B. Like, cool. Let's regurgitate that and tell you why you should want to watch that fight. Like, sometimes it's great to be able to pass some knowledge and kind of some insight to what we have. And if you're a competitor, I hope he gave you some good tidbits, and imitation is the best form of flattery. So I hope maybe I helped somebody else out too. And there you go. So thank you for your time as well.
Yeah, well, thanks for being willing to do that, Mike. You have a great rest of the day, man.
You too.